Hello everyone, welcome to another Smart Cities Week engagement that we have for you today. Today is our case study series day called City Encounters. We had one not too long ago, an hour or so ago, under the theme of sensing. We're about to embark on a feature case study around the idea of business continuity during these troubling and certainly challenging times. And later today, we'll be having our third and final session in the case study series around impact. Thank you for those that joined us this morning and are coming back, and also to those that are registered for the session later today. My name is Adam Beck. I'm Executive Director at the Smart Cities Council, based in Brisbane. I'm part of our global network of executive directors covering all the regions in which we operate: North America, India, Europe, Southeast Asia, and as I mentioned, I'm the Executive Director here in the region. So we have a feature case study coming up. You're all on mute, however your voice is not being suppressed at all. We encourage you throughout the presentation by our guests from the City of Casey to use the questions box, listen in, put up their questions or comments, and we'll be circling back and addressing those as part of a follow-up after the presentation, where we dig into some questions. Also, if you have any colleagues or peers or friends that were not able to join this session, this recording will also be up on our YouTube channel about this time tomorrow. If you wanted to go back into YouTube, search for our channel, Smart Cities Council Australia, New Zealand. For those, I've noted a number of familiar faces on the delegate list today, but for those who haven't been part of Smart Cities Week Australia New Zealand 2020, it may be called Smart Cities Week. It's going for about 8 months. We started in April, and we have a whole range of online engagements of all different types that have been part of our program. If you head to scwaustralia.com, you'll be able to see what's left in the program. We still have a couple of months left, and I'll highlight some of those feature sessions coming up shortly at the end of this presentation. Also, for those that aren't familiar with the Smart Cities Council, who we are, what we do, how we operate, we're a partner-based or a member-based organisation. We recently launched our expanded partner ecosystem program, and we now have partnerships available and on offer to not only local cities and local authorities, but also to early stage startups and also knowledge and research institutions. For those that may be interested or know someone that really needs to sort of refresh or indeed embark on some fundamental training around smart cities, our Smart Cities Academy is being run. Our Future Cities Academy, I should say. It's a bit of a prelude to our 2021 Smart Cities Academy program, but our Future Cities Academy, which is a one-day intensive, 3 modules, 2 hours each, that's going to be run on the 15th of October. The 13th of October session is fully subscribed, and we have about 5 seats left on that. That is free for local authorities, employees of local councils, and also members of the Smart Cities Council. You can head again to the Smart Cities Week website, scwaustralia.com, for further information and registration details on the Academy. Let's get into our order of business for today, which is a feature case study around the theme of continuity and smart cities, and all things how we responded during some of those peak challenging times associated with the health pandemic that is COVID-19. Joining us today for this case study are some friends from the City of Casey in Victoria. Laura and Seb, we don't certainly envy the position that many of our friends are in Victoria. So first of all, I don't know whether we sort of extend our apologies or condolences, but we know that times are tough and a lot of people are hurting down there. So wishing you all well and safe. But from that, hopefully an exciting case study today about how your organisation has moved through and responded to some of the challenges that were confronting you. I'm going to hand over the controls, Laura, to you first, and I'll get you to introduce yourself. And I understand you're doing a bit of a tag team with Seb today, so I'll let you both jump into it. Again, for our delegates who are online, please use the questions function in your dialogue box, control panel, I should say, to note any comments or questions, and we'll come back to those as we advance. So, Laura, I'm handing over the controls to you now. They should be coming up. Your screen has appeared. It looks perfect. Over to you. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks for the opportunity today. So yeah, my name's Laura. I'm the Head of Smart City and Innovation at the City of Casey, and I'll let Seb introduce himself.
I'm Seb Cunningham. I'm an Access and Inclusion Officer in the Inclusion and Wellbeing team. So looking at vulnerability across Casey and how we can address the differing needs across our diverse community.
Awesome. So can you see the screen okay?
All good.
Okay, cool. So for a little bit of context, earlier this year, pre-COVID, a world that is very foreign to us now, we decided to develop a smart city strategy for the City of Casey to really understand the role that emerging technology, data and innovation can play to support our growing communities. And the City of Casey is actually one of the fastest growing communities in Australia. We're home to over 350,000 people from a range of diverse cultures and backgrounds, and we're sort of situated in the southeast of Melbourne, about 40 kilometres away from the CBD. So we've got a really great mix of green spaces, industry and residential spaces as well. And it was really important for us, as we are one of the growth corridors of Victoria, to understand these emerging themes of digital innovation and emerging technology across our community. And when COVID hit, it really accelerated the conversation around how do we bring digital innovation to a lot of our services. We are home also to a range of services offered by council, and we know that digital is a way that can be used to connect people, and that's going to be really important as we move through you know, these years of immense change. And so when COVID happened, we really wanted to zero in on our vulnerable community groups, because we knew that the digital divide would be accelerated as a result of COVID-19. And we sort of found that there were three tech challenges that were associated with this feeling of disconnection. And the first was lack of internet access. The second was lack of device access, and the third was lack of digital literacy. So basically, if you don't have these three key ingredients, you know, during the pandemic, it was really hard to stay connected and you know, mobile and independent. And so those sort of translated into some of these social challenges. So social isolation, people feeling disconnected, they couldn't see their friends and family like they used to. Service disruption, so we have a lot of direct care workers that do go into our community members' households to help them maintain their independence through things like shopping, online shopping, shopping for them, and then also just helping with things around the house. And that was also leading to increased vulnerability. So things like being able to receive online payments and be able to sort of manage and be independent. You can't go to the bank, you can't go to the post office. So we really needed to understand how we could come up with some solutions where we could continue our really important services that within our vulnerable community groups, to be able to make sure that they could still feel independent in this time of immense change. And when we looked at the data, especially around internet access, we sort of found that across the City of Casey, about 84% of households have access to the internet, but there's a severe drop when we look at low-income households and those aged over 65. And you know, it looks here about 10%, but that's actually thousands of people across the city of Casey who don't have access to the internet and access to devices to stay connected in this time of change. So we knew that we needed to address that aspect of the service, as well as looking at how we digitize some of our existing services into online platforms. So the challenge that we had was twofold, and it was really to understand how we can empower our vulnerable community members to use digital channels in a time of physical distancing and sort of immense change. So Seb's going to run through 3 of the solutions and how we sort of migrated them and kept a community-centered approach in the way that we brought digital technology to our community members who were not necessarily confident in using it.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I guess we know, as Laura said, the most digitally excluded groups are older people, those above 65 years of age, those on low incomes, and those with low educational attainment. I guess when the conversations increased around how digital innovation could approach these issues during COVID, there was increased talk around vulnerable communities too. So I guess the greatest challenge was, how do you bring a group such as older people into the digital fold when they are the most digitally excluded and are going to be the most challenging group to engage in this way. So the digital alternatives to our services and programs targeted this older cohort, particularly those receiving our community care support. So the community care service delivers personal care in home and also social support services. Of course, we found throughout that families, friends and neighbours have really pitched in to help older people through the restrictions. However, there are still many who rely on community care services for essential support and have nobody else to help them with, basically the everyday needs. The Kinder Connect program was developed in partnership with Child, Youth and Family Department, and the Get Connected and Shopping Online projects were developed in partnership with Community Care. So I'll run through each of these projects now. If you could go to the next slide, Laura. So Kinder Connect, this was a digital alternative to a previous intergenerational program called Bridging the Gap. Bridging the Gap supported several older people to attend kindergarten classes, and children and older people would exchange stories, read with them and teach them to cook, those sorts of things. So findings from that particular program were that older people and children learn from one another, and older people reported having more energy as a result of the program. So it was imperative that we tried to, in some form, continue this connection between older people and young people, particularly with the increasing loneliness and social isolation of a lot of our older cohort. Kinder Connect program paired an older person with a local kindergarten. Exchanges between the two began with one-way communication in the form of letters and pictures. This phase helped establish common topics of interest and also gave us time to develop processes around child safe standards for the two-way video conferencing to begin. We had never done this previously, so that was something that required a fair bit of work. So an example was that Robert, who's pictured in the slide here, he became known as Grandpa Robert throughout the program. So the kinder children planted a broad bean plant in the ground at the kinder and gave Robert his own so they could compare each other's progress. So it was a bit of healthy competition there. They then video conferenced one another and were able to see the development of their plants. Grandpa Robert unfortunately experienced the loss of his son throughout the program. And although the kinder children couldn't actually attend kinder and do the video conferencing, they organised to send songs to Grandpa Robert to cheer him up. And the care worker who supports Robert reported that although he'd experienced a great trauma, he was very cheered up by that connection. So it provided him a real source of, I guess, consolation there. the program has been a great way of keeping older people connected, increasing a sense of belonging and connection within their community, and has the incidental benefit of increasing digital confidence and literacy. The program has extended the reach of the regular in-person intergenerational program, as hopefully at some stage when the restrictions ease, those who aren't able to leave their homes, like for instance they have low mobility or illness, they can participate. So it's a great way of getting people who are isolated in usual times to participate in intergenerational programs where we just didn't have that facility before. In turn, the older people gain social and wellbeing benefits, as well as learning those digital skills that can obviously be used to connect with others. I guess a major challenge throughout the program was that lockdowns prevented a number of video calls going ahead because of the kinder children not being present in the centres, and health of older people has also prevented some of these calls from going ahead. As stated though, childhood educators are trying to find alternatives and they're being really proactive in this sense. So we used MS Teams, so that had to be used, an organisational requirement, and also those one-way communication tools as well. So it's been a really successful project. We've learned a lot out of it, and we hope to continue it after lockdown ceases. So if we go to the next one, Laura. So the next program alternative was called Get Connected. So essentially we were looking at how we could get a device library together to give clients who didn't have devices both data and a device to use for a period of 3 months. And we would also train direct care workers to deliver this service. So they were trained up in with a basic understanding of how to deliver one-on-one sessions with clients, very basic topics, and the social aspects of that interaction were extremely important. These sessions were delivered within the home for clients, and the one-on-one aspect of it really helped people, I guess, self-guide their learning. So, everybody has a different need, a different want, and the one-on-one really, really helped this. Feedback from providing this individual service from care workers includes navigating activities and providing homework tasks between sessions, so the consumers feel comfortable and they get to practice, which is great, and master those activities. The sessions come with learning modules on common topics, so they get a printout of the activities, and they also have remote help from a social enterprise called Lively, who deliver over the phone support at the moment, which is great. So obviously the activities are things like downloading apps, such as Facebook and Messenger. One person wanted to know what the time was in different parts of the world so that they could contact their friends in different countries at the appropriate times. Obviously attaching pictures and text to emails, inviting friends on Facebook and using Facebook. And we actually had a couple of people wanting to use eBay and Gumtree to sell items they no longer use. So there's several steps in that activity, which was a real challenge for the direct care workers, but really exciting as well. Look, the outcomes from this particular program were that there was a real confidence instilled in the clients learning to do these activities independently, increased social connections with family and friends because they were able to transfer these skills to contacting family. And we actually had a couple of clients so far who have purchased their own device as part of the program. So they've seen the benefits in it and put aside a significant amount of money to purchase devices. I guess the challenges with this particular program are that one-on-one service is quite intensive, resource intensive. and we're going to have to see how we are able to continue this after lockdown. Also, another part of it is, as always, data is extremely expensive. So if they don't have Wi-Fi in the home, data plans and SIMs are expensive, as we all know. Next one, Laura. So the shopping online project, I mean, this was, Community Care has two services that provide groceries to clients. So that's assisted shopping, where the clients go with the direct care worker to supermarkets, to pharmacies to get their essentials. And we also have unattended shopping. So that's for people who can't leave the home. The direct care worker goes out with a shopping list and gets the things they need and brings it back. At the outset of the pandemic, clients were obviously fearful of attending supermarkets, and some had health conditions, so they were advised not to leave their home. Direct care staff were also put at risk each time they attended the supermarket and the various places they needed to go to get the items. So online shopping was the obvious alternative. We also had clients who all needed to go out and get cash as well, so they also had to visit the ATM. There were several places that they needed to go, and this just increased the risk. So direct care workers have devices themselves as part of their role, so they can use this to purchase the groceries online with the client and teach the client how to do it, or the direct care worker can use the client's device. So there's obviously learning happening here, as with the Get Connected program, but the exchange, I suppose, of the financial exchange means that there were several issues that had to be ironed out with finance and the legal teams. So there was a fair bit of toing and froing between there for them to appreciate the urgency and benefits of this project. Another challenge was the change within the actual community care team service was probably slower than anticipated. So yeah, it really took a lot of capacity building and many meetings to get this up and running. Outcomes from this particular project, I suppose, again, it supported consumers to remain independent, and they could also transfer these skills to other digital activities, such as getting in contact with family and friends. Next slide, Laura. So the outcomes, I guess the increased reach of our program. So kindergarten program could reach more people. It wasn't constrained by physical locations, and we're hoping to continue this going forward in a permanent way. And also scalable opportunities for many existing services. Again, teaching those transferable skills to older people is vital for understanding other future smart cities initiatives. So, this has benefits that, mean that they'll understand why other advancements are important. Another outcome was new offering. There was a strong adoption and interest from consumers. So this is still progressing, I suppose, and we're still getting interest from clients at the moment. It also provides new value to the direct care worker and consumer relationship. So it's really thinking about a flexible service that is person-centered and acknowledges the social aspect of the service. So it's not a transactional relationship that you come in and clean the home, or you come in and you shower the client, but those social aspects are as important as the task the direct care worker is providing. And that one-on-one, I guess, support in the digital activities really showed that, because it is a one-on-one thing, going at the client's pace and really getting those social benefits for them. And again, relatedly, it's client-driven. So we give the client more choice in what they actually want to get out of the service. We found that Some clients were simply, some clients were getting service probably more for those social benefits, but it just wasn't explicitly stated. So now we're giving them more choice in how they use their funding, and it's really exciting. So in August of 2020, we had 83 service hours delivered, 61 individuals received service, and 7 requests to borrow devices, 5 of those with data plans. So this interest is building, and I think a lot of these programs will continue far beyond COVID lockdown, and yeah, so many more opportunities we're not even aware of yet. Thanks, Laura.
Awesome, thanks, Seb. And just to, I guess, close out, there are a couple of lessons that we've learned along the way, which I would love to share. So the first is really the cross-functional teams aspect. So there's having that smart city narrative and why we really need to be supporting our vulnerable community members to bring them into a digitally included environment was really important, and then helping people across the organisation to understand the roles that they could play in driving this. So we had support from digital technology, continuous improvement, and obviously the Connected Communities team were driving this, and then collaboration and bringing the right people in at the right time to solve the problem. It's very common to sort of talk to lots of people and then try and do everything yourself afterwards. So really starting to bring all of that, how do we lean on people at the right times? Smart technology and programs, that was another really big thing, that technology is nothing if there's not the capability programs or that ability for us to help unlock the role that technology can play in people's lives. And these things can take time. Programs, as Seb sort of said before, there's the capability building within the direct care workforce, as well as then transferring that onto our community members. And that's a really important thing, that we need to have, the right documentation for now, that has to be, done quite quickly, but thinking about what that scalable potential is in the future. So how do we sort of build those foundations? And Seb and Rachel and others in the team did an amazing job of getting that device loan system up and running, so getting all of the processes ready so that then we could continue to increase the devices as funding sort of came along, and other things as well. So it was really important to make sure that we had the right processes, and that we coupled the smart technology with the program, so that our community members could learn at their pace and learn in the way that worked best for them. And the last one was really to partner for change. So really looking for partners who are already being those digital advocates in our community. And Seb said before about Lively, an intergenerational phone support system for older people to chat with young people and helping them to get online and digitally literate. So really looking at how do we start to build a bit more of that ecosystem, because the council can be a catalyst for this change, but to ensure that longevity of the service and digital inclusion at a community level, we need to be working with partners and helping people across the community to see the role that they can play to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to be digitally included and digitally active. So that's really our digital activation program case study.
Laura and Seb, thanks so much for presenting that. I've got about 16 questions here that I've written down. I'm going to make a start, because we don't have any questions from delegates yet. They're either thinking of them, you are super clear and efficient and they have no questions, or somewhere in between. So I'm going to fire away here. Can I start? And please, for our delegates that are online, start putting up your questions and comments. I'd like to start by getting a little bit of a snapshot of what was your digital inclusion program or strategy before COVID? Did you have one? Did it exist? Were you playing around? What was sort of, where were you at with that?
From my perspective, we didn't have an enterprise digital inclusion framework or strategy, and I think that that's something that we're definitely looking at as a result of this, is how do we sort of formalise, because we know that a program in isolation has an impact, but coupling it with policies and processes and other ways that we can also empower our community to drive digital inclusion as well. It's really highlighted to us that this is a priority for Casey, and understanding the role that council can play to kind of drive that. But from what I was aware, there wasn't any sort of formal digital inclusion. It was just sort of the Connected Communities team championing it whenever they could throughout their services. Is that a fair thing to say, Seb?
Yeah, look, I think that we had a bit of push and pull in terms of digital inclusion. We saw a lot of the innovation in community engagement processes and systems go online. And as an access and inclusion officer, we were really concerned about them excluding a number of people from community engagement processes, just as an example. But I suppose we were probably guilty maybe in not seeing that there was a lot of opportunity here, and with the right incentives, with the right scenario, people are probably able to do more than they thought they were. We've seen through this whole experience that a lot of people are getting online where they just weren't before. Look, there's still going to be those groups of people who are unable to get online, and we've still got to find solutions for those people. But we're finding that there are, far more opportunities now, and it's become a huge focus in our work.
Yeah. So picking up just on that last little sentence there, Seb, and also for you, Laura, in terms of your role, and I understand that the city is kind of working through its strategy sort of development creation process now. How much has COVID and what you did and what you experienced, how much of that is informing your broader smart cities strategy? I don't want to paint a broad brush here and say that local government typically doesn't really feature in its smart cities strategy digital inclusion of vulnerable communities. It is certainly here and there, but it's sort of certainly the smart cities strategy is certainly the domain of IoT deployments, of sort of a whole range of other really good outcomes-driven investments. But what you've highlighted here is when you look at it, you go, well, yeah, I mean, we have entire vulnerable populations that are either they can't get online, we can't communicate with them, and essential services that are just, that they would struggle with. What has this taught you that you potentially roll into your broader smart city strategy?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we did quite extensive community engagement as a result of the strategy, and we were really surprised, and I guess it probably was in the realm of COVID that really highlighted it, but at the level of inclusion and discussion about making sure that no one gets left behind within our community, within our contractors and suppliers, and within our employee network was really highlighted that has to be a priority, because as Deb sort of said before, it's a lot of our engagement methods are moving online, and we need to make sure that important members of our community still can have a voice in those spaces as well. So getting that kind of core digital literacy, digital devices and internet access up and running is sort of one of those, like almost a digital hierarchy of needs. You've got to get that kind of base sorted so that then we can start to move up the chain and get them, all members of our community feeling like they have a voice and can contribute and also receive services as well. And just a small example of within the Smart City strategy, we did find it quite difficult to engage our broader community in a time where COVID was all people were talking about, understandably. And so some of the things that we did was we and we knew that younger people and older people often are the ones who don't get included in smart city or in strategies in general. So we created a special form for our direct care workers to go into, vulnerable community members of their households and ask a couple of just really quick questions about what does smart city mean to you, what sort of services would you like to see, and then a bit of that education about what are some of the opportunities within the city of Casey to drive a smart city future. And that was a really powerful way for us to think a little bit differently about how do we make sure our community can still have a voice in the smart city world. So it has most definitely informed our future direction of smart cities at Casey, which is really exciting.
And it's also, I suppose, really strengthened that relationship between our team and Laura's team too. So where we kind of were on the periphery of, working together on a few things, we really see the strengths of both approaches, and we're working collaboratively now. So it's, really exciting. Silver lining.
Well, that knocks out one of my other questions I had here. Cross-department efforts and working together. Were there any new experiences? Seb, I don't want to sort of cast judgment on sort of those that do the work that you do, but was the digital world one and digital tools typically one that didn't necessarily feature day to day in your work? Was this a whole new experience for you dealing with the smart cities folks? Were there any new experiences there?
Yeah, look, I guess within my work, I do a lot of work with data, mapping vulnerable communities. So definitely use technology, data within my work, but more as an analysis tool, I suppose, than anything else. But in terms of communities we serve, those vulnerable communities, I suppose it was always trying to protect them from technology and advancements that are going to leave them behind. I think that we just need to get more creative in the way that we include people, and we're not there yet. We're definitely not there yet. But that person-centered approach, I suppose, the issue maybe, hypothetically, maybe the issue was seeing that excluded community groups maybe are just seen as on the periphery and really aren't going to be, we'll solve them in a different way. But I think that this whole experience has kind of brought us both closer together, and we're both seeing benefits of each side. I think that we really need to think about innovation in not just the technology for technology's sake, but in terms of how people actually go about using it. And I think that there's still a huge amount of work to be done, and I don't think anybody's particularly doing it really well at the moment. But this has accelerated things by probably 5 years. So yeah, let's see what's on the horizon.
Yeah, interesting. Georgie's got a question up here, or probably a comment more than anything, and there's going to need to be some offline connection happening here. But I wanted to raise the heart of her question here. Georgie from the City of Marion is looking to undertake a community digital inclusion needs analysis or assessment. And she wants to connect with you guys offline, which we'll make sure happens. But on that point, is that a tool, sort of digital inclusion needs analysis? I've never really sort of seen it pitched that way before, but it kind of makes total sense. Was there some process before you jumped into your 3 solutions and programs that informed which way you were sort of going to go to invest your time? Shopping, the Kinder, and sort of the device, and giving people the fundamentals. What sort of drove you in those areas? There's probably 15 different ways, really good things that you didn't get around to. But how did you assess the need or opportunity there?
I think, well, for us, it was looking at the data to understand, where the increased vulnerability would likely be as a result of COVID, and what are those key barriers to stopping people having things like internet access. And so we did some mapping to understand what the different suburbs that were more likely to have less usage of internet, and then we also just looked at, like, fundamentally, what do we need to stay connected on a day-to-day basis? We need internet, we need a device, and we need to be able to know how to use it. So we kind of focused in on that first, and that's why that Get Connected program and the shopping online were the sort of two flagship pieces, I guess, that we worked on, because we knew that until we had people being able to feel like they could use devices, we probably wouldn't see the scalable impact that the potential would be. And then the Kinder Connect, I believe, was because there were direct care workers and kindergarten staff on both sides. It sort of created an easier facilitation for those digital channels. So, but there's been a lot of other things across the organisation around youth services that have gone online as well. This was just how we approached people who are locked out of the digital world, how we sort of got them online. So we really focused in on what are those core things they need to get up and running. And yeah, there was many a fun day writing training manuals about how to shop online, and I learned some stuff. I didn't even know how to shop half of my stuff online. So yeah, that was, I guess, the process of prioritizing it and going from there.
Yeah, I suppose as well, you know, in the initial period of the lockdown and the pandemic, you know, there was a fair bit of panic. So it was really that focus on, we know that we have a lot of older people living alone. We have a lot of older people who absolutely need these services on a, you know, weekly basis, whatever it is. So in terms of that analysis, it was really just repurposing or redesigning those services in an emergency fashion, really. Now, I suppose we're looking more at, you know, a lot of the work we're doing in terms of digital inclusion analysis is on the cold communities now, getting COVID information out to cold communities in language. So there's a lot of work happening in that space as well. So yeah, look, we are going back and really trying to understand our community in that digital inclusion lens, and there's heaps of work still to be done.
In sort of an extrapolation of that issue of you know, being online, remaining online, just physically being connected, can you share any information or insights about a couple of other key customers and audiences? Let's start with the city first. You know, how did you, I assume you sort of transitioned somewhat to work from home. I'd love to know, how did that go for the city? I'd also love to know, you know, with the homeschooling as well, you know, the sort of the same issue potentially also becomes relevant in terms of kids being able to, you know, be connected in devices, and then also small business. So could you talk us through some of those, you know, other really important customers and cohorts, audiences, but start with the city of Casey itself. How did you as an organisation go from sort of all being in the office to then all being at home? What was that experience?
Well, I think for me, I was working from home pretty much the end of March and have been ever since. I think Seb was in and out of the office due to the role, but for us, it was you know, working from home has always been encouraged, but maybe not utilised to its full capacity. So I think we had a lot of the systems in place to allow for us to be able to migrate working from home. But our technology team and our continuous improvement team and our workplace team just did an amazing job. Kind of, there was so much that happened behind the scenes. You know, when things work seamlessly, you're like, someone's working really hard to make this look real good. So I think that was my experience, and I don't know, Seb, if you had anything more around.
Oh, well, I guess I started working from home about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago. But I was at our office up until then as an essential worker. Once the mask provision came in, then they really cut down to bare bones. But, you know, we were for a number of months, about 20 people within a building that's, you know, built for 900 or something. So it was a bit of a ghost town, but I guess we all had the technology set up already. You know, we all have our smart devices with hot desking. So the transition was seamless, really. So that was really easy.
So on those other two audiences, any insights on how small to medium enterprise, just residents and kids at school, what did you hear? Did you have anything active in those areas? How did that all play out?
We so within the City of Casey, we have a state-funded school called Casey Tech School, which offers learning programs to schools in the local region. And we had a chat with them just to kind of understand if there was any, you know, increased challenges with the schools in the area around device access and internet access. We're really fortunate that we've got some really great local community groups that do refurbish laptops, and they had been working with schools to sort of try and make sure that there were no kids or students who were sort of left behind on that front. So we did explore that avenue, and we sort of found that it was really well taken care of, which is a really you know, great thing that happens within the city, within our city, through not-for-profits and connecting in with the education sector. So that was really great to see. And from a small business perspective, we definitely, I mean, through the Smart City strategy engagement, we did have, I guess, lower levels of our community engaging. And I think that was a bit of a symptom of the time, in that people's priorities were really trying to just focus on the here and now, and how do we just sort of maintain our business, our services. And our economic development team have done an amazing job, you know, building programs and grant funding to try and help small businesses, you know, transition some of their services into online. So, you know, going from being a takeaway place to then being able to move everything onto, you know, Uber Eats, and how do you help to understand those digital landscapes for our broad and diverse community. So they've done a really amazing job reaching out to businesses and really giving them the support that they need. And then there's also been grant funding available as well. So I guess that's kind of been the way that the City of Casey has supported our small business community, but we definitely have heard that migration into an online environment, having that support has been really important.
Yeah, okay. I'd like to ask you a question and encourage everyone else to ask questions. Use the questions function in the control panel. It's been said by a few, I won't say a lot, but a few, that COVID has certainly accelerated at times our level of digital transformation. Some of the things that we've been trying to do for years kind of just happened overnight, right? We were kind of forced into it. And I know instances, particularly around data, where some local authorities have, in some cases, a new appreciation for data. They were able to identify where they had data gaps. If you weren't able to share data, either internally or, you know, with external organisations, that became a constraint to sort of solve problems at times. The other one is the purchasing of data, you know, particularly around spend data and economic related kind of activity. Has COVID potentially given Casey any additional firepower in the justification for ongoing commitment and investment in smart cities related solutions from a technology and data perspective? Has COVID kind of given you a little bit more in your sort of, you know, ROI or business case development kind of processes?
Yeah, I think the smart city agenda at Casey's always been quite well supported, but I think this has definitely highlighted the areas that we should be focusing in on, and business intelligence and data management and data insights is one area that has been of growing importance across the organisation, so that we can make better decisions for our community. So yeah, that's I think it has accelerated many conversations, especially around how we look at new approaches and new ways of working together to solve for these sort of long-standing issues through the use of technology. So I think it has, and I'm excited to be able to share the Smart City strategy in the next little while. It'll be coming out probably later this year, and it will really sort of highlight what our strategic focus areas are and where we think we can have the biggest impact in supporting our growing communities through the use of technology. So yeah, it's definitely accelerated a lot of the combos.
And Laura, if we were to, I mean, we've got Seb on the line from one of your other sort of, internal peer sort of departments or groups. If we were to sort of line up all of the other department heads, what type, is there a broader level of greater appreciation around this? I mean, being just selfishly for the moment in terms of the city's lead for smart cities, has it brought you together? Has there been a greater appreciation internally across, what are traditionally sometimes, siloed departments?
Yeah, most definitely. The amount of emails I get, just and I think that the role that the Smart Cities team plays within Casey is one to drive the adoption of new technology, but the other part is to connect the dots between all of the different departments within Casey. And so we kind of have this amazing opportunity now, because people are more aware of the importance of smart city in communities, in managing our local environment, in managing our infrastructure, that they've got a central point now that they can come and bounce around ideas to, and then we do the work of mobilizing that, but also making sure that our departments are talking to each other, so that we can look at those interrelationships between vulnerability and the environment, and canopy coverage, and different low economic socioeconomic suburbs. Those kind of interrelationships are the things that I think is really important that the Smart City team plays, rather than just sort of saying, here's a bit of technology, go have some fun, get some data, have a good old time, but sort of think about what that strategic intent is across how we link all of our services and all of our strategic goals within the organisation together. So that's kind of, I think, where my workload has probably, amplified by maybe 3 to 4 fold, and I'm a team of 1 at the moment. So it's there's a lot going on, but there's a lot of value that's being created, and that's just continuing to tell that story about the role that we can play.
Yeah. Seb, I'm interested in something that I've come across a fair bit in my discussions with cities, since March, is this idea of a digital relationship between the city and customer or client or citizen. And when things happened, in the first wave, they happened pretty quickly, and I heard from some local authorities that they were just challenged with basic functions like getting in touch, with citizens and key customers. Every city's got a CRM, and you got your database and things like that. In terms of the part of the community that you've been working with, was there a digital relationship there before or not? Has it increased? Are you in a better place now based on what's happened to be able to sort of interact with your customers? Can you sort of talk to that piece, that digital relationship?
Yeah, look, I think that yes and no. I think that some areas are better connected now, but others aren't. It's really been a case of, I suppose, for instance, with the examples we gave today, they're serving the 5,500 community care clients we have as part of that service. But so we're better connected to those in a digital way, but perhaps we're not So perhaps that improvement hasn't happened with the broader population of older people, because it has been a case of emergency management basically, and doing what we needed to do to continue service. I think that some areas still need a lot of work. I mean, there are certain suburbs within Casey that, you know, I think as Laura said, you know, more than 1 in 5 households aren't connected to the internet. There still needs to be a huge, I guess, amount of work to get those people online and improve that digital relationship. And again, we come back to the point that it's not always going to be possible. But there are, I guess, methods we haven't thought of yet. You know, we've been discussing with community facilities, Laura and I, about, you know, Wi-Fi hotspots, how we can get, you know, people without the internet free access to the internet even during lockdown. Had varying levels of success there. But I think ultimately, you know, that relationship takes a lot of time. And I think part of these projects is acknowledging that learning happens, you know, in a incremental way. So you learn how to turn a computer on. That is progress. But you know, that's a far cry from being able to sign up to a database and being able to, you know, communicate online with the city on an ongoing basis. So it's just going to take a lot of time for some people.
Yeah. Well, Seb and Laura, that brings us to the conclusion of this session. I wanted to say on behalf of all of the delegates, thank you so much for sharing that with us, the outcomes, the lessons learned, and of course the solutions that you came up with. For those that are online that are following Smart Cities Week, I want to make sure that you're aware of some of our upcoming sessions. We have in particular a feature morning plenary coming up on September 21. We have Minister Victor Dominello from the New South Wales Government, Minister for Customer Service, who is sharing some of the recent releases down there, the Smart Places strategy for New South Wales, also a smart infrastructure policy. Bookending that session will also be another politician that we think really gets this space. Mayor Teresa Harding from the City of Ipswich will deliver a keynote at the end of that morning session, and in the middle there, some really great perspectives from Rebecca, Alice, Jonathan, and Di, who will join us to discuss this idea of measuring up and making a difference. Our digital transformation, our technology and data investments, are they making a difference? And asking ourselves that hard question of what is changing and how do we improve? So encourage you to, again, head to the scwaustralia.com website to check out what's left on the program, including registration for that session. Just a final one, again, on behalf of all of our delegates, to Laura, Seb, thanks for joining us so much to share that case study. Our thoughts are with you. That's great work. I think inspiring for other cities as well. Thanks again for sharing that knowledge, the outcomes, the lessons learned, and really a final note of just you know, stay well, keep safe, and for all of our delegates, we look forward to seeing you online again soon with a Smart Cities Council session. I hope everyone has a fantastic week. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Adam.